Welcome to the Lapsus Lima podcast. Please support us at lapsuslima.com.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Lapsus Lima podcast, and today we have another interview for the Building Beauty project in Naples, Italy. Today we're speaking with Munishwar Nath Ashish Ganju. He is an architect in private practice since 1972. His practice has taken him throughout the Indian subcontinent, including Afghanistan. Presently, he builds with the Tibetan refugee community in Dharamsala to research the practice of a sustainable architecture in the Himalayas. He has won several prizes in national and international design competitions. Based in New Delhi, he lives and works on the urban fringe to demonstrate the principle of urban renewal by citizens. He is currently president of GREHA, a charitable society for the research on human habitat, instituted in 1986.
Can't speak now. Yeah. Sorry, there was an interruption.
Oh, okay. All right. He is currently president of GREHA, a charitable society for research on human habitat, instituted in 1986. All right. Hello, very good to speak with you.
Hello, it's good to be addressing you and to be part of this exciting program, which I'm very much looking forward to in Naples.
Yes. How did you come across the program with Sergio?
Well, about 3 years ago, I wrote along with a colleague of mine an essay on what I imagined would be some theoretical basis for architecture. It's called The Discovery of Architecture, a contemporary treatise on ancient values and indigenous reality. Now, this essay was published about 3 years ago, and I've always thought that, and we have referred in it to the work of Christopher Alexander, and sort of we were trying to take it further in our own kind of cultural milieu. And I sent the book to Christopher Alexander. I didn't know him, I'd never met him, but I sent him the book. And a few weeks later, I got this email from Sergio Porta saying that he'd gone to have lunch with Chris and his wife, and they found the book to be very significant. And he had some very laudable things to say about it. And since then, we entered into some kind of correspondence. And, lo and behold, Sergio and Maggie, when they wanted to start this program, they contacted myself and Narinder, my co-author, whether we'd like to join in the program, which we very heartily agreed to do very quickly. So that's, a slightly longer story, but that's how it came about. And so it's all been rather remote connection, but I hope it works out to a more direct one soon.
Oh yes, there promises to be a very direct connection between ideas and building with this process that we're going to be starting in Naples, and seeing how there's going to be a curriculum that involves mostly a lot of hands-on work, students that are going to have access to building resources in an environment that they are going to be living in and around. How are you looking forward to having that at your disposal?
Well, David, most of my work in the last 25, 30 years has been working with marginalized communities to build with them, getting them to build for themselves. And in this process, it is really a question of, I don't so much have to work with my own hands. I do sometimes, but mainly getting people, ordinary people, to build for themselves. Because I believe it's an instinctive phenomenon. The ability to build is instinctively in all of us. But somehow or the other, we seem to have lost touch with it. And I think it's a great, it's very rewarding to be able to work with people and to see that they are able to bring out this part of themselves which has been hidden or not available to them, and see the joy when they build something, and actually, in a sense, it anchors their psyche, in something real. So I've been doing that for a long time, and with not in a school, but on building sites, with building communities, So I see this as a great chance to engage with students as well, and to share with them some of the experiences and uh, some experiences that I've picked up along the way.
I certainly agree. I think one of the most important kinds of shifts that is happening as we're entering the early 21st century is that in addition to architecture improving, or at least intending to improve people's lives and environments, the architect is no longer seen purely as someone who delivers, but as someone who facilitates or empowers.
Yes, indeed it is correct. But I'd like to add another dimension to it. You see, it appears that building is something which is very physical. Now, what I am more also quite interested in, after having, let's say, been doing the physical side for so long, that there is an extremely important emotional content and a philosophical basis to how we do it and why we do what we do. And it is that which is of greater interest to me now. In fact, when I started my career as an architect after finishing college, the thing that interested me most, and it is mentioned in my work, the exhibition of my work, is that I was interested in grounding ancient sacred principles in architecture, in our day-to-day lives. So this is very much easier to say than it is to do. And I have been trying to do this for a very long time. And I think that, we're getting nearer to it. As we get older, it seems to be, and I was, this is really the thought behind the essay that Narendra and I have written, where we talk of ancient values and indigenous reality. We feel that the ancient philosophical systems which are known to us are invaluable in modern times, in our day and in this time, when we are, on the brink of losing civilizational values, and the planet seems to be in great distress. So I think a kind of deeper understanding of who we are, of the self as part of the community, is essential. And I think this whole exercise of building is something which takes us much closer to ourselves and yet connects us with community very satisfactorily. So this is something which I feel has to be now. This is a research area, really, because I don't know how many other people in the world. I'm looking forward to meeting yourself and others who are part of this group, if I may call it that, the school, and to see how such a research agenda can be taken further forward. Would you say that this is useful?
Yes, I think that's tremendously useful. Something that my own interest and my own research has been focused on for some time is the necessity and the challenge to bring self-conscious modes of production into healthy environments of wholeness. And you're speaking of the sacred and the indigenous. It takes a kind of integration of self-conscious awareness with practice in order to do that, which is a real challenge. Have you had positive moments of overcoming that challenge that you'd like to highlight? Things that you think we can really take away with us?
Well, there are certainly there are experiences like this, and I have written about this. In fact, one of the things that was published in the International Journal of Environmental Studies a few months ago was a description of my work with the Tibetan refugee community. And this nunnery, which I've been working with them. I mean, it's amazing that these nuns who are, have fled from Tibet and often have been very badly traumatized, and to house them and to make a place of learning for them without the use of formal building industry. They've managed it themselves over 25 years. 200, 300 nuns are now housed. And, it's been a process not just of building the buildings, but really of building their lives, And I've seen this happen. Every time I go there for a site visit, I'm delighted and I'm really renewed myself, and I come back feeling, much better than when I went from the degraded metropolis that I inhabit most of the time. So there is very real, I think it is an extremely real experience, that building with people to to actually rehabilitate ourselves. And I think every act of building, if it is genuine and if it is direct and if it is true, will do that. It is a form of yoga which integrates us with the world around us. I think it's an extremely fundamental kind of thing, and somehow certainly over the last 200-300 years, we seem to have lost touch with a lot of what it can do to us. Kind of bring things like this back into the mainstream. That's what's required. But it'll be an effort, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you mentioned that this really vital connection that you feel renews you to such a great extent is with nuns in an intentional community, building very much for themselves. I don't think that it's exactly an accident that the Building Beauty project is sited in a place that is a former monastery, because it is in very much a similar tradition. The buildings there originally were very much in the similar tradition of an intentional community building for itself.
Yes, yes. Work that I'm doing in this settlement where I live at present in Delhi, on the edge of Delhi. This is a very spontaneous. You see, I found that in all our cities, at least I can speak for the Indian subcontinent where I've traveled a lot, that we have, the organically evolved settlements which form the core of every single settlement. They've evolved slowly over time, organically. And then there is a planned settlement which is imposed on it or around it. But now what's been happening in our part of the world is that there is what I call the spontaneous settlement, which is built by people outside the framework of the plan or the laws. They follow very good cooperative practices in order to be able to live together in high density or quite a lot of proximity. And so are kind of working out ways of managing their environment and making it convivial, which is a great lesson. The way they fail, of course, is in municipal utilities, which require a great deal of they requires quite a bit of technical expertise, and it requires resources, exactly. So I'm really working with these communities to put those in, and respecting what they have done for themselves. Unlike many architects seem to think that housing is a problem in slums. I don't think housing is a problem. Slum dwellers know very well how to build, and they build what they need, And but what they cannot do is to take care of their sewage and the drainage. And we can, as experts who have dealt with these kinds of things in other situations, can come in and help them do that. So this is the thing. I'm doing sewage management here. But I tell you, it's also very satisfying because people people respect that. People they can't do it themselves. They say, well, let's find a way of doing it in a more formal, if you like, or organized manner.
Well, yes.
So yes, sorry, please go on.
That's all right. And I think that this is an extremely important area of focus due to these, what get called so often the informal settlements. So much of the world's city, so much of the world's urban structure will be growing into. So much of the world's urban growth will be areas such as this within the next 40 to 50 years. And it really is a critical time that we are in right now where that can be put on a trajectory of giving people the tools to really have a much better environment or to let it go off into something that is going to be less beautiful and less healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. I think this is a great challenge, especially in the in the part of the world which is normally referred to as the South, or the lesser industrial developed world. But David, there's a great advantage I feel in the lesser industrial developed world. We are much nearer nature, and so I think it is easier to find those links, those bridges which one needs to build, to get over this the rifts which are there in our society today, in our unbuilt environment. I think obviously the problem started when we started losing touch with nature, and this takes me right back to these some of the great philosophies of this subcontinent has produced, and which rely entirely on understanding what exists. It's easier to find, for instance, easier to have cooperation amongst people like this. People who have very little, so they have very little to lose, and much more open to understanding other people's problems. I think harmony is one of the most important things that we have to concentrate on today. Finding harmony amongst whatever, amongst people, amongst environments, amongst methods of doing things. We've had a time of terrible conflict in the last century.
Oh yes.
In our society, since ancient times, there's a very, very strong lesson for everyone to learn, which is to know yourself. It's the first lesson, and the most important one, which probably takes you more than one lifetime to learn. And I mean, but know yourself. This is the most important thing. Which and all this. The relations one builds in the world are, in fact, as you build more relations, you get to know yourself better. And this is, I think, is very much required. But as I said, it's possible. It's more easily possible, I think, amongst people who are deprived of the benefits, so-called, of technological progress.
Yes, well, I think certainly a challenge would be how to integrate this technological process without it driving a wedge between people or between the world. This gets into something that one of my favorite thinkers, Alan Watts, has talked about, that what gets called a materialist culture is quite a misnomer, because it's to be materialist, one would assume that this is a culture that loves material, where instead what gets called materialist is something that takes nature and turns it into garbage as quickly as possible.
Right. Yes, that's very well said. I must say that that's important. I mean, that's a very important realization to have. And yes, indeed. But I think this is where you see some of the, for instance, ancient, for instance, Mahayana Buddhism has understood many of these things very closely. And so I think it is now time to examine and to see how, this very ancient part of us is going to meet with the very modern, with the contemporary. Of course, as you know, one of the best examples, or the best people to explain this best, is the Dalai Lama. And he's been now making a huge impact, trying to make an impact on education by including what he calls secular ethics, making that the basis of education practice. It's a very interesting research which he's embarked upon. But he's very clear. He said it is something which was researched and perfected by the great masters 1,000 years ago in Nalanda University, and somehow was forgotten for about 1,000 years. And the Tibetans, in their what he calls, they stored it in their fridge for 1,000 years, in the plateau, in the cold. And now he wants to give it back, He sometimes says it's rather fortunate that he's left Tibet and now, he's able to sort of move about everywhere. But it's very hard for an 82-year-old to travel like the way he does. Anyway, I've been fortunate that I've, had several occasions to receive teachings from him. And the person I work with in the nunnery, my client, is his sister-in-law. And so, he told me in the beginning that we want Buddhist buildings. I said, I know nothing about Buddhism. But in the process of building these with them, I've learned a little bit of Buddhism also. And I find the Mahayana texts are really fantastic. So anyway, there's not the only ones. There's so many other ancient texts, I believe, which we have neglected. And, I think a lot of the secrets are actually there inside us, waiting to be revealed.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's a fantastic note to look forward to things on. If anyone would like to contact you or have questions about your work or what you might be doing with the school, what is the best way for them to find out?
Well, emailing is easy, I imagine. And my email ID is now given on your website, isn't it?
Yes, it is. People can go to BuildingBeauty.net. There's a menu in the upper left-hand side. They can click on that, go to the staff page, find your profile where your email is right there. I hope quite a lot of people get involved, because this is certainly going to be tremendous for everyone connected to it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, David. It was very nice talking to you.